The John, Anik, and Kenny Florian podcast. John, Anik, and Kenny Florian.
I fucking love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole.
There are a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, John, Anik, and Kenny Florian.
Oh, it is great to be with you. Great to be with you as always. Monday, April 25, the year is 2022, episode 346 of the Anik and Florian podcast. Ken-Flo doing some intensive gun training in the greater South Carolina area yesterday, but back at home today, kid, huh? Quick turn.
I am back. Great to be doing the show, kid.
Well, it's good to see you. I went to my first auction on Saturday night, so I had to play catch up when it came to some of the mixed martial arts ingestion, but my wife teaches math at this private school, and so I'm like the poorest guy in the building. And, you know, the Miami Dolphins suite goes for $47,500. So most of the live auction items, like I knew I wasn't really going to be able to compete for. You know, but there was one item, I thought they were talking like 4,500, and it's like, they're like, no, dude, it's like 45,000. So
Damn.
paddle 108 stayed on the table all night, but I was so excited to see my name on a paddle, and then it ended up being sort of anticlimactic. But it's good to see you. You had a little PFL broadcast on 420. We're going to get into that. We're obviously going to talk about Jessica Andrade. We will talk to Seán Sheehan from SevereMMA and Sherdog.com. MMA journalist. I hope he's okay with me calling him a journalist, but scoring expert and just a good voice in the MMA space. We're going to talk to him coming up in about 20 minutes. Picks with Brian Petrie for UFC Fight Night, Font versus Vera. We've got a huge bantamweight headliner coming up Saturday night at the UFC Apex. And if Ray Longo answers the call at 11:20 a.m. Eastern time, he will be on to close the show today. But I am not ambitious that he is going to be awake at that time. All right. I want to talk about Clay Collard for a minute, if I could. Wins over Jeremy Stephens in the PFL. I mess with the PFL so much, calling it like the Pioneer Fighters, like that. Now I'm forgetting. Is it the Professional Fighters League?
Yes.
What is it? Okay.
Yes, Professional Fighters League.
All right. PFL, baby. Clay Collard. So my research suggests his first 18 pro fights were in Utah. Highest profile fights, I guess he was 1-1 in this series with Justin Buchholz. Then he goes 1-3 in the UFC. We had to have called some of these fights in 2014 and 2015. Fought Max Holloway in his UFC debut in 2014 in like a last minute situation.
Yes.
And this dude's legit, man. You know, a lot of people thought he beat Haush Manfio obviously last season, right? And that would have changed the entire narrative, but he fights Jeremy Stephens. Guy's game as hell. And I think of all the guys in the PFL right now, for me, when I see Clay Collard on the card, not just because I like saying his name, you know, I'm following this guy. Like as an MMA fan, I'm following what Clay Collard is doing right now. So
he's an absolute savage, dude. You know, a really kind of happy-go-lucky guy, really funny outside the cage. Just loves to scrap, and he's this, you know, lanky-looking dude. You know, and you wouldn't expect anything from him. You know, came from like a skateboarding background, but he like wrestled and boxed his whole life, and he's must-see TV, man. This dude. It doesn't matter who you are, even if you're Jeremy Stephens and you can put someone out with one shot, he'll get right in there and throw down with you as well. I'm seeing improvements already from last season to this season. And I agree with you. I actually thought he probably won that fight against Haush Manfio. But yeah, right now he's poised to kind of, he's poised as a favorite right now, in my opinion, looking really sharp, had an absolute war with Jeremy Stephens. Crazy fight.
And that was your season opener last Wednesday, a little 420 show. Any marijuana smoke in the building? Any cannabis smoke in the building on 420 or no?
You know, I didn't smell any.
Okay.
You know, I'm sure there were some pens being passed around though.
All right.
So, yeah.
Those vape pens. I saw Shoeface with a Bravo choke in 29 seconds.
Yes.
Not a very difficult night at the office for the newly minted millionaire, huh?
Well, he got rocked early and then literally just kind of bounced right back, pretty much knocked out his opponent, you know, with a shot. And could have won by TKO, but instead, you know, just went right to his default mode, went right to a Bravo choke, and took him out with the quickness. So he's looking really sharp, man. Again, his confidence level and how he's putting it all together, he's looking great this season yet again.
Just so happy for him, right? To
Such a nice
realize
guy.
the million and to win fights. Cause yeah, nice guy and super talented and maybe underachieved a little bit in the UFC. Haush Manfield obviously keeping the judges out of it this time around, knocked out Don Madge. I guess he was losing the fight, but rallied for the finish. Is that accurate?
Exactly, dude. Crazy comeback. He was getting outpointed and really out techniqued by Don Madge, who was looking so sharp. And I was literally talking about how Don Madge was nullifying Manfio defensively. He was looking great. And the one time he backs up against the fence, he had nowhere to go. Manfio knew he needed something big to win that fight, lands a right hand, drops him, follows up a couple punches, and wins the fight in the third round, which is exactly what he needed to win. It was pretty wild.
I know a lot of the MMA handicappers were on the Madge side.
Yep.
Rip up those tickets, folks, if you have not done so already. And I also noticed Rob Wilkinson.
Yeah.
So he was cut from the UFC rather unceremoniously after fighting Israel Adesanya in what was Adesanya's UFC debut. He attempted like 35 takedowns, got him down, I think, once or twice. Yeah. But Wilkinson had a hard time finding MMA fights, so was doing some boxing. Now he's won 3 straight and might eventually work his way back to the UFC. For now, it's the PFL, and he's looking pretty good, huh?
Dude, he's looking great, actually. First of all, looks absolutely jacked. I have no idea how he made 185 pounds. And what's so interesting is, there's a lot of guys out there that know they need to work on certain things and they'll kind of do it in training. This guy was out there doing professional boxing fights, professional kickboxing fights. And guess what? Has helped Israel Adesanya for a few fights to get ready and for him, of course, to learn. So when you fight someone like Israel Adesanya, when you train with someone like Israel Adesanya, you're going to get better. He's a true martial artist, has made huge improvements in his game. He's good everywhere. And he's another guy. He's kind of my dark horse to win the division right now as well.
How about that? All right. Good stuff. PFL 1 in the can. And nice to have Ken-Flo on the sticks as always. All right. UFC did have a live event on ESPN Plus. And in the main event, it was Jessica Andrade. Put her in the fucking Hall of Fame, all right? I promised myself I wouldn't go down that path today, but it's like, what else does a woman need to do? And I thought she won the Rose Namajunas rematch in what was an absolute war. But that's neither here nor there. It was Andrade over Amanda Lemos. Lemos would kick my fucking ass. I mean, do you know what she would do to me? I might have 40 pounds on her. She would fucking destroy me. I could train for 6 months. And do nothing but train and eat right. And Amanda Lemos in any martial art would fucking destroy me, including jiu-jitsu, which does not appear to be her strong suit, Ken-Flo. But Andrade with the standing arm triangle choke, the first of its kind in the UFC. Remarkable submission win for the Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, Jessica Andrade. Your thoughts on the UFC main event?
Listen, you don't need me to tell you that she's an absolute savage. Andrade still has that hunger, still has that fire in her to go out there and deliver, not only wins, but exciting performances. She loves to get after it, move forward, pressure the fighter, and look for a way to win. And she can do it now in a variety of ways. We all knew about her takedown ability. We all knew about her power. But now she's getting some submissions under her belt, and she was in the perfect position to finish that arm triangle from the standing position, a very rare submission that you'll see in mixed martial arts. I think it was the first one that we've seen as a finish in the UFC, and she looked phenomenal. And again, she did it against Amanda Lemos, who I'm a big fan of. She's a tremendous striker. She's very fluid. She was looking pretty sharp. But again, one mistake at the highest level, and that's going to be the difference especially when you're going against someone like Andrade, who's been there and done that. But she continues to impress, man. What a fight. What a finish.
So you got podcast producers like Cody Merrow that are not trying to discredit Andrade, but they really question Lemos tapping to this particular choke. So I don't know if it's fair of me to put it this way, but why have we not seen this executed in the UFC before? I mean, we remember Toby Imada, that inverted reverse triangle choke over Jorge Masvidal, but why is this choke so rare, and why haven't we seen it in the UFC?
Yeah, listen, it's a move you don't see too often because, I think a lot of people are hesitant in getting there. A lot of times they'll use the floor to pin their opponents, right? If I'm on top and I'm working an arm triangle, I can use the floor and my weight to sandwich my opponent where they have no escape, right? In this case, it worked because they had the fence. It's the exact same position, right? Just the fence is replacing the floor.
Right.
So there was no immediate escape for Lemos. Is it a legit submission? Absolutely. And someone was asking on Twitter, sorry, I forget your handle. They're asking, was that technique? Is that power? No amount of power is going to get you a submission choke if you're not right on the carotid artery. You have to be in the right spot. That arm needs to be across your body. And lucky for Andrade, Lemos, I think, was maybe throwing a punch and kind of her arm came across her body, and Andrade happened to clinch. Her arms fell in that right exact position. She knew exactly what she needed to do. She pinned the arm across with her body and with her head. So Lemos could not bring that elbow back to either get an underhook or to bring it back to where she was safe. So in my opinion, it was excellent technique. It was killer instinct, taking advantage of that opportunity. And again, when you're biting down on that carotid, you have the arm on the other side. That is technique, in my opinion. Does power help? Yeah, it can help, no question. Yeah. But that was just beautiful technique and beautiful killer instinct from Andrade. Yeah, just awesome to see it. And for Lemos, she almost went out. I think that's why she dropped. She was about to go out. She was in that thing for quite a long time.
Jessica Andrade, one of the most accomplished women in UFC history. So instinctive, too. I mean, when you think about her winning a world title with a slam against Rose Namajunas, who was trying to sort of defend with that Kimura. And there are big fights in 3 divisions for Andrade. It seems like her dream scenario is to fight the winner of the rematch between Zhang Weili and Joanna Jędrzejczyk because she has head-to-head losses against both of those women. But there are big fights in 3 divisions for her right now, right? When she went to flyweight, she was perfect except for the Shevchenko fight. Obviously started her UFC career at bantamweight. Absolutely exceptional. And, her bank account's got to look pretty good at this point in time, I would think, at this stage of her career. So
she's got to be killing it at this point, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lemos just kicks like a mule and hits so hard. I mean, I do feel like she's a future strawweight problem, despite this result. Man, Andrade got to be careful, man. I felt like she was going to get knocked out if she didn't pull the rabbit out of the hat there a little bit. I don't know.
She's really good. Listen, I think Lemos matches up really well against someone like a Rose Namajunas, just based on her build and how she strikes. I think she's a tremendous striker. Needs to get her grappling in order, obviously, but a ton of potential. I think she'll be back.
All right. Co-main event, you might have heard from Claudio Puelles on the Anik and Florian podcast last week. He submits Clay Guida with a knee bar 3 minutes and 1 second into the opening round. Called for the finish. Nobody has 3 knee bars in the UFC except for our man, the Prince of Peru. Look at Ken-Flo smiling for his fellow Peruvian. People in the YouTube comments trying to suggest that Ken-Flo doesn't have Peruvian blood. Unbelievable. What'd you think of Puelles over Guida in the co-main event?
The Niba number 3.
Kid.
The Niba. Dude, just beautiful stuff. What's so interesting is the fact that he said, listen, the only time I really hit knee bars is in fights, and to me, what it indicates is he's a guy who's in that flow state, who's not trying to force to do something. What you want in a fight or when you're defending yourself or whatever is you want your body to almost take over. You want that instinct in your body to be way faster than the thinking mind. And to me, Puelles is in that flow state. He's totally relaxed. He's composed. It didn't matter what situation he was in. It seemed like he was always a step or 2 ahead of Clay Guida, who's been around the game for so long, who seems like, both mentally, physically, and technically, he's at one of the best points of his career, actually.
Yeah, that's fair.
I know he's had some wear and tear, but, he's a guy that, he said he was feeling great. And he looked good up until that point. To me, it just looked like Puelles was better. So a really impressive win for Claudio Puelles, who came into this fight like it was just a matter of fact that he was going to go out there and not only win, but he was going to finish him. He's like, yeah, after I go out there and finish Clay, we'll see what's like. He's looking like a world beater right now. So yeah, I was really impressed, and this kid's the real deal, man. The Prince of Peru. Watch out.
He is the real deal. And I think from a matchmaking standpoint, they're going to have an easier time booking him fights now that he's unranked. If he's in the rankings, I
Right.
think it's going to be harder, you know. Who wants to mess around with the jiu-jitsu guy? Even Khamzat Chimaev, I think, said recently that, you know, their fight wasn't on the floor a whole lot, but when it was, you know, Gilbert trying to snatch an arm, he didn't like that very much, you know.
Yeah.
And especially guys, you know, with the knee bars. I don't know. Like, to me, I don't want anybody near my knee. That I feel like I'm, you know, you can lose a fight and lose 18 months of your career. It's like Husamar Poyatis, you know, ripping your leg off.
Exactly, dude. I mean, it has that fear instinct, you know, or that fear,
Factor.
create fear factor, I should say. That's more accurate. You know, similar to a knockout shot. You know, do you not want to tap, or do you want to, you know, be out of the side on the sidelines for 18 months, as you said?
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, it was a brutal knee bar that had nothing to do with, you know, Clay not being tough. That was locked out about as beautiful as you can get it. Just beautiful technique there from Puyas.
There were a lot of big winners on the UFC show. I want to get to some other headlines. Macy Barber clean 30-27 times 3 over Montana De La Rosa. Charles Air Jourdain over Lando Venata with a guillotine. Marc-Andre Barrio, the power bar. Yeah, Jourdain's an interesting guy at featherweight, you know? I mean, especially on the heels of this result. I know he had Lando pretty impressed, I should say. Nice to see Tyson Pedro back. What a weird start to the night with Mike Jackson and Dean Barry, the DQ with the eye gouge. We'll get to that with Seán Sheehan. A couple other things I want to ask you about. Dan Hardy is going to get back in a combat sports setting here against Diego Sanchez. It looks like it's going to be a boxing match. Cody, you can correct me if I am mistaken. But it's been a long time, obviously, since Hardy has competed. And obviously, Diego, legendary status. I don't have to tell you. You fought him in your UFC debut. I guess I was sort of thinking that Dan Hardy would fight somebody that was maybe closer to their fighting prime. And I don't know if this sort of matches his expectation. But I would think when you was started here, Dan Hardy against like Tyron Woodley, you know, a former world champ, you know, I don't know. I thought this was a little bit surprising that this was the fight. I don't know if you have anything on that.
Yeah, listen, this is not a great fight for Diego. I know, obviously, Dan Hardy's been away for a long, long time. But, you know, this is his specialty, right? I mean, this is where he really shines as a mixed martial artist, is on the feet. He is going to be taller, rangier, bigger than Diego Sanchez. Diego Sanchez, the best part of his game is on the ground, right? He's a tremendous scrambler. He's very good at both escaping and attacking submissions, and utilizing his positioning to utilize his ground and pound. This is not the fight that I expected. Diego is a guy that I really admire a lot, just based on his heart that he showed over the years, right? He is a true warrior in every aspect. And he's been in some really tough fights. He's been at this a very long time. I'm concerned with the fact that he's taking a strictly striking battle against a guy who has way more experience in that arena. So I think this is most likely a fight for Dan Hardy to warm up, to maybe do something else, whether it's a mixed martial arts fight after, or some kind of warm up, maybe for someone like a Tyron Woodley or something like that. So yeah, good fight for Dan. Not a great thing for Diego. I hope Diego stays safe out there. And I'm interested to see how it goes. You know,
Yeah, we both love Diego Sanchez. Again, I know his fight with Clay Guida is in the Hall of Fame, but I've said for a long time, based upon his own career merits and his contribution to the sport, I would like to see Diego Sanchez individually recognized. But yeah, I also think from a Dan Hardy perspective, you know, and I love Dan, great analyst and a dear friend of mine, former broadcast partner. But I don't know, like, do you want to be like a -1,000 favorite? I thought he wanted, you know, like when you've gone back and competed in these Legends Jiu-Jitsu tournaments, like, you want to be the fucking underdog, you know? So this is an 8-round boxing exhibition on July 2nd. And I would think if they're taken at, well, it's an exhibition. So I would tell you, don't bet on exhibitions, because you never know. But if it was actually going to be sanctioned, or see, I know it'll be sanctioned, but if it was actually going to be a professional bout, I would say bet on it. But like when Floyd Mayweather was fighting Logan Paul, like, I'll bet on Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley, right? But I'm not going to bet on something that they classify as an exhibition, like Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul, and this here with Diego Sanchez and Dan Hardy. All right, some rumblings about a possible fight between John Jones and Stipe Miocic, and I find this to be absolutely fascinating. You know, Stipe's been competing like once a year. Jones has been out forever. He's been teasing this UFC heavyweight debut. Francis Ngannou was spending time with Tyson Fury this weekend. I guess that isn't even part of this discussion, as Ngannou remains on the mend. But what do you think about Jones and Stipe, and how would you handicap a matchup between those two if we can make it happen maybe as early as July 2nd?
Gee, I love the fight. This is the fight that I would love to see. I think it's the fight to make. And Cody, I'd love to see if you can find out when the last time John Jones has fought, or maybe John, you know that. But
You're right.
but it's been a while. So I'm really curious to see how John Jones comes back and how he looks at heavyweight. I know he's been trying to put on weight for a long time now in anticipation of his UFC heavyweight debut. But I still think he's going to be a very dangerous guy. And I think John Jones is the kind of guy that loves to be doubted, loves a challenge. I think that we didn't see the best John Jones at 205 pounds in his last few fights, particularly because I don't think he felt the threat factor. I think he knew that he could coast through a fight and not have to be concerned with the guy across from him. Maybe that's a soft take or a bad take, but I truly believe that to be true. I think John Jones is motivated and loves when he hates his opponent, when he feels that, he's going to get knocked out, or when he's threatened by something in that person's game. I think that's when we see the best John Jones. And I think because of that, we have the potential to see the best John Jones here against Stipe Miocic, who has been one of the best heavyweights, perhaps the best heavyweight we've ever had. So I love this fight. I think Stipe is going to be motivated by it. You look at John Jones and what he's accomplished. Many people consider him the GOAT, but it has been a while. And I guess Cody is saying he fought twice in 2019. So that's the last time we've seen John. And
it was the Dominic Reyes fight early 2020. UFC 247. So it will have been 2.5 years since we saw John Jones compete. And I think it's interesting. It's really interesting, the potential comeback of John Jones, and obviously Henry Cejudo, who had a meeting with one of our chief executives, Hunter Campbell and Sean Shelby, over the weekend. Seems like it's going to be bantamweight for Henry and not featherweight, which seems to be his dream, to become C4 and fight Alexander Volkanovski. Could be a case of be careful what you wish for, but Cejudo thinks he's primed for that challenge. All right, well, we have our guest with us, so let us move on now to the guest line. He is the host of SevereMMA's podcast, also the Sheehan Show at Sherdog.com. On Twitter, you can find him at Seán Sheehan BA. The pleasure is ours, my friend. It is great to see your face. How are you this morning?
I'm not too bad. Thanks very much for having me on. It's I know we've been talking for a while, and it's good to get on. Obviously, talk a bit of judging, which I seem to be always talking about these days, but why not?
Judging and scoring. So is your first name pronounced Sean? I know you got that nice little fancy accent over the A, so I want to make sure I'm getting it right. Yeah,
that's it. When you have, it's the fada in Irish, so the sound. That's when you see a fada. It's always that. So like Sinead, if you ever see that when there's a fada over it elongates the letter. So yeah, Sean.
Got it. All right. Well, I'm a big fan of yours and your work, and we very much appreciate your time. For those in our audience that may not know who you are, where you come from, could you just tell us a little bit about your background, and I guess ultimately how you got so passionate / aligned with MMA scoring, judging, and all of that noise?
Yeah. So basically, I started covering the sport around a decade ago. I suppose I had never planned to cover anything. I was just kind of a fan of the sport. My background is in economics and maths, and now I'm covering the sport full time. So it's kind of gone from there, I suppose. But so I kind of fell into it really. Everyone probably knows Crooklyn, Steffi Haynes. I used to listen to her show all the time, and anyway, I got into it from there. I started doing a bit of a blogging in SevereMMA, which is the biggest website in Europe, and Ireland asked me to write, and I came from there. The judging part, then, I suppose, it all came from a Paddy Pimblett fight it was in 2016, I think it was. He fought Julian Erosa. They're both in the UFC now, and it was a very controversial fight. Julian Erosa ended up losing the decision, and most people thought Erosa won it. So I put out a tweet just saying that, literally the result of the fight. And I think I remember counting at the time, 104 people replied, and every single person said that was a robbery. Like everyone disagreed. And I said, everyone said it was a robbery. And then a couple of the judges kind of had a go at me, and they were like, what do you know? And they pulled up some of my tweets saying, well, look, round 2 was a close round. And no, you said it was a close round, but you're saying it's a robbery. So anyway, we had a bit of a back and forth. And one of the judges who was on that fight, Ben Cartilage, he reached out to me maybe 6 months later and said, look, we probably shouldn't have done that. You probably shouldn't have done what you did, call us out. We probably shouldn't have snapped back at you. And then I started talking to him from there. And it turns out being, he was on his way up then, but still a very top level judge at that stage. But now he's one of the best judges in the world. I think he judged Habib versus Poirier and Fight Island and others. So I started talking to him from there, and really I've been talking to him since. We've become good friends, and he's kind of taught me the ways of judging, if you want to put it like that. I've gone to him every weekend, asked him questions, and it's been going on now for maybe 4 or 5 years. So I've done my best to try to kind of acknowledge what the way the judges see it, the way the criteria is written. And obviously there seems to be a big difference between the way kind of fighters, coaches, and fans maybe see it, and the way the criteria is actually written. So kind of, I suppose what I've been doing over the last 2 to 3 years is trying to bridge that gap. And it's a very tough gap to bridge, to be honest.
Well, we appreciate all of your work and effort along those lines, and I would encourage everybody to check out the pinned tweet at Seán Sheehan BA and dive into his scoring explanation. But before I send it over to Ken-Flo, and I want to be as efficient as possible with your time, I was actually going to probe our listeners and have them ask you questions, right? So that I could make sure that I ask the right questions today. I guess I would just say in an open-ended way, sometimes I bemoan the fact that after Aljamain Sterling fights Petr Yan, that like our show is just drawn into this like morass of negativity because we're talking about scoring instead of talking about the undisputed champion or the fight or the martial arts. And, Ken-Flo doesn't always want to show up and talk about scoring. So how do you navigate that with your own shows? Or do you find that you kind of always just lean into it because people are passionate about it?
Look, I think everyone covering MMA has that issue, whether, even this last weekend where there's like early stoppages and maybe no contests and things like that, or, it's a debate that's always going to happen. And I always say, well, if we're getting into the debate about judging, if there's a close round, it's a close round, no matter what scoring system you have, no matter, who's judging it, it's going to be a close round, and there's going to be debate. One person will say Aljo, one person will say Yan, one person will say a fighter B, one person will say a fighter A, and it's always going to be like that. But on my show, look, it's the same as what you have. We probably come on, we talk about judging for the start, and we try to cut it off and then try to talk about the actual fight, because like you look at that Sterling Yan fight and what Sterling did in that fight, no one expected him to do it. I remember doing a preview show before and go, there's no way Sterling can win a decision. If it goes to decision, it's going to be Yan. And I scored it for Sterling. I think most people kind of did score it for Sterling, and it was a phenomenal display. And it is a shame, like even for someone who talks an awful lot about judging it, I'm sure the judges would say, and the officials would say it too, we shouldn't be talking about that. But who's that down to? Is that down to the judges? Is that down to the officials? Or is that down to the people covering it? Like, and I'm one of those people covering it, so I'm not calling out anyone here. I think I'm as bad as anyone else for doing it. But I think, look, if you're talking about judging, if you're talking about scoring, as long as you're talking about it in the right way, as long as you're talking about it with the criteria backing you, I don't think there's anything wrong with talking about it. So it's a part of the sport, and it always will be.
I want to talk about the criteria. Do you think the rules and the explanation of how you judge a fight is specific enough, or should it be that general? Because sometimes I feel like if you get down to the micro too much, you can run into some issues as well. But what's your take on that?
Do you know what? I think with the way it's written is a little bit open-ended, and people say it's down to interpretation and stuff. But talking to judges, right? And it's funny because I talked to one judge and I asked him a question about a certain round or a certain part of a round or a certain minute in a fight. And I talked to one judge and he says one thing. And I talked to the other judge and he says the exact same thing. And talk to another judge and he says the exact same thing. And it's the minutia that they go and talk about. I always hear from people, there's no accountability with judges. We never hear from the judges afterwards. But who does hear from the judges afterwards? Other judges. They get on a call. I've been on a couple of their calls with California. There's one coming up in the UK now. They've set up their own commission here recently. I'm going on one of the, I think it's next week or in 2 weeks' time, and they talk it out. I know Forrest Griffin has been on recently. I know other people have been on with him as well, and they talk out these rounds. They actually play it around on the Zoom. They go through it, and all the judges, there's a quiz thing comes up, and you can say it's a 10-9, 10-8, and then they go through it and say, why is it a 10-8? One judge from the UK will talk, one judge from the US will talk, and they go through it like that. And that to me, and look, speaking to judges as well, they all have WhatsApp groups and they talk to each other after fights and they say, why did you do this? Why did you do it that way? And to me, look, it's easy to go on. I have the unified rules up in front of me here. They're only 3.5 pages long. It's easy to go and look at the unified rules. The tough part is to break down the minutiae of the unified rules. And that's, to me, what I've been trying to do over the last few years, talking to different judges and trying to break it down in specific ways. And when you look at it, and you think, it's very open-ended. It's down to interpretation. But the funny thing is, if you look at rounds, which I've done every week through the criteria for the last maybe 2.5 or 3 years, in the UFC anyway, at the big level, if you're not in Texas or a few other places,
right,
they're very consistent, extremely consistent. Now, you mightn't agree with them, but they're consistent in the way they judge. If you don't agree with the way the criteria is written, the criteria will have to be changed. Like there's two ways of judging a fight, right? Judge it via the criteria, or judge it via how you think the criteria should be written. And if you're judging via how do you think the criteria should be written, you're doing it the wrong way.
Right.
Because that's, if like I put out the example, and it's a bit of an obtuse example, but if you go to, if you watch an NFL game and the score is 10 points to 3, right? And you think, no, that's not how I like it scored. It actually should be 24 points to 17. Well, the rules are written. You can't just make up your own rules and decide.
Right.
I'm sure the Patriots would have won every Super Bowl ever if you're scoring it that way, John. You just can't do it that way. And I feel a lot of people are doing it that way. We talk about active control. We talk about top position. It does not matter a jot. MMA is about effective grappling and effective striking. And that, we can obviously get into that. But that, to me, is the biggest thing when you're talking about judging.
Sean, if we can go back to the Sterling-Yan fight, round 2 is another thing that people talk about. In your opinion, do you think that was a 10-8 round?
No, I don't. I went back and I just watched it before we started, and I watched it last week as well. Now, 10-8s have changed. I know John spoke about it on this show last week. I don't think it was a 10-8 before the 10-8s change, honestly. I think, it was one of those rounds where this is the bit, and this is the minutia we talk about with effective grappling, right? So, Kenny, if you're teaching someone a jiu-jitsu class or a wrestling class tomorrow, you will absolutely teach them that what Aljamain Sterling did in that second round is effective grappling. Mm-hmm. But when you're looking at it from a judging point of view, it's not effective from a judging point of view. But there's two different types of effective, right? Effective in terms of winning, a scramble, or winning position, or winning, a fight in terms of an overall fight. But in terms of winning a round or winning via effective grappling, it's not just getting a position. It's not just holding someone in a position. It's what you do from the position. Like, I'll take another obtuse angle, just because the judging criteria as well is written for, these wild, occasions. Let's say, okay, we all think the mount is the most dominant position you can have in mixed martial arts. Most people would agree with that. Or maybe, maybe the back mount with the back triangle, but one of the most. Yeah. What about if you get Alexei Oleinik in the mount? That's not a very advantageous position then, is it? Because he's going to Ezekiel choke you from the mount, So it's what you do with that position. That position for Alexei Oleinik is way more advantageous. So why should the person in the mount get the score? If the person in the mount is landing big elbows and hitting him from that position, absolutely. Now, on the Sterling round 2, he had the body triangle for a large portion round. I actually think that is effective grappling. I know you talked briefly about that last week, because that, I've never been in that position. I'm sure, Kenny, you could tell us, and John as well, that hurts you. Like that, when you're holding that, was it Poirier and Pettis? He got submitted with a body triangle. That absolutely is effective grappling. So Judge is looking at that, and he's like, that's scoring from that position. But watching back the fight, there wasn't really position for me in that fight. Maybe you disagree, but I didn't think there was 1 second where it looked like Yan was about to get submitted. He had the hand around the neck in the last minute of the fight, but Yan quickly got it off. And I remember Joe said on the commentary, he did well. He did really well to defend that position. And the effective striking came. I looked at it, I actually wrote it down. It was between 1 minute 40 left in the round and 59 seconds. So to me, he had 41 seconds of truly effective. Now, he had other bits of effective striking, but overwhelming, I would say, effective striking in that. So you look, and you're looking at the 10-8 round, and this is what you should always do after a round. It's written in the criteria. There's 3 parts of a round you should look at: damage, duration, and domination, right? And did he have the duration? Yeah, he had the duration. Did he have the domination? I would say he dominated him a lot for that 40 seconds, and he was in a dominant position. But I think that more goes to the duration side of it. So you could argue kind of 1.5 there, I would think. The damage, I didn't think there was much damage there, to be honest. Now, there was damage for that 40 seconds, right? And if you're looking at it from before the 10-8s we were talking about before, when there's 2 of those Ds, you consider it. So if someone had given a 10-8, absolutely. With the new 10-8s, you have to have overwhelming damage. That's what they're telling him now. And I don't think there's any argument to say he had overwhelming damage in that round. So I don't think any judges, and I think all 3 gave it 10-9. So yeah, I don't think that's a 10-8 in that specific round.
So it doesn't have to be overwhelmingly effective. It has to be overwhelming damage for that to be scored a 10-8.
Now it does, yeah.
But you're saying now it does, and that's what they're telling them now. Has the language been rectified to affect that, to dovetail with that communication?
No, the language hasn't been changed.
That's
an issue. That's a big issue. And that I hate it. I put out a tweet about it the other day. I really don't like it. As someone who's, very much on the judge's side and on the officiating side.
And we are too.
I hate it because
the record.
Yeah. The problem with it is, and I'm sure you'll bring it up here, like round 1 was 10-9 to Sterling. Round 2 was 10-9 to Sterling, and they are very different rounds, Right. And that's a problem that in some ways can't be rectified totally. But the 10-8s being given the way they were for the last, 4 years, really, really helped to that issue, I feel like. As someone who's looked at all the rounds, it's really helped that issue. And the fact that we've gone back, and it's not gone totally back. It's absolutely not gone totally back, but it's gone back a bit. I don't think that helps that sort of position. Now, that one specifically, I think it was still borderline, to be honest. But there's lots of other rounds that probably would have been 10-8s a few months ago, and now they aren't 10-8s. And look, when I say it's overwhelming damage. So it's not overwhelming dominance. It's not overwhelming duration. It doesn't need to be exactly 5 minutes. It doesn't need, like, if you, let's say Luke Rockhold, Chris Weidman. Do you know that round where Luke is destroying him? If that happened now, that's overwhelming damage. That's still going to be a 10-8.
Right.
But if you have a round like, the Jan Sterling round where he is like a John Fitch sort of round where he's on top for a full 5 minutes, landing strikes but not landing too much. 6 months ago, that could have been a 10-8 round. They still weren't really given those rounds, and I like that because I think you should have to land damage from those positions. But it could have been a 10-8 round. Now it can't be. They want overwhelming damage for it to be a 10-8 round.
That's interesting. And when I watched it live, I didn't think 10-8 necessarily, but I did bring it up on the broadcast. And then when I watched it back, I thought for sure 10-8, and you have widened my eyes even more so here. But let me ask you this, yes or no question. Are you okay with someone who scored that for Aljo 10-8 in real time and who didn't have the benefit to go watch it back a million times? Like, I'd imagine even an expert like yourself would be okay with a fan who watched that round and thought it was a 10-8, no?
If you're looking at it from how we're judging right now, which you should always look at it in those eyes, I think that's not a 10-8.
Okay. You're a writer. Like, I'm a former editor. We could pick the language apart the way it's written. Like, you and I could take a day or a week and certainly make that language tighter and more clear and digestible. But I guess that's neither here nor there. Got to eliminate the 10-10s because it sounds to me, Sean, like if you score around 10-10, the commission might fucking cut you off for the rest of the night and not let you judge again. Honestly,
Yeah, it's and that's the way it is. I'm looking at the criteria right here in front of me. This score will be extremely rare. It says about a 10-10, extremely rare. Like a judge once told me, right? A judge is not a noun. A judge is a verb too. The judges are sent there to judge a round. They're not sent there to sit in the fence and say it's a 10-10 round. No, if there's a no contest and it goes 10 seconds and no one has landed a strike, that's basically what 10-10 rounds are there for. You go out, the judges. There's 3 ways of scoring a fight, right? The effective striking grappling, which we talked about. If that's dead even, which it never is, you go to the effective aggression. If that's dead even, you go to the octagon control. So there's 3 ways to score a fight there. You don't need, after that comes the 10-10. If all of those are equal, then it's a 10-10. That just doesn't happen. That just does. As I said, the judge is a verb. If Kenny lands one punch and John lands one punch, who's going to land the harder punch? No, probably Kenny. Let's be honest here. So the ref is going to give the round to Kenny. That's the way. And as well, when we're talking about it, and you said on the second under the commentary in the second round, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe, or you said in the podcast last week that you thought Sterling won the first. You thought Jan won the first, then you saw the numbers, and you thought Sterling won it. And, we've seen that a lot of times. People that pull up the numbers to justify why someone wins around. That's a completely wrong thing to do.
I agree.
Like, the numbers matter not one jot. Like, imagine you I don't know how many strikes Aljamain Sterling landed. Let's say 30 strikes, right? So he lands those 30 strikes. They have the effect they have. Imagine the punch that Dan Henderson landed on Michael Bisping the second time they fought over Manchester where he knocked him down. That one punch is more effective than those 30 punches all together, right? So if Petrie had landed that strike that Dan Henderson landed, and not one other strike in the round, I would argue he won the round, and he should win the round via the criteria. So the stats would be 30-1, and the guy who'd landed the 1. Now that's an obtuse example again, but you get what I mean. Like if Jan had landed 15 and they were more effective than the 30 Sterling landed, then the 15 strike should outweigh the 30, and the person with the more effective 15 strike should win the round.
Right. And I think my purpose in bringing it up was maybe to say, 12 fights into the night, am I seeing things clearly right? I look over to my left after what I thought was a Jan round, and I saw those numbers. But you and I are aligned as far as the stats and just how unofficial and largely eliminatable they are. Kenny, if you want to jump back in at any time, I got a million things going on here. All right. The scoring system itself, right? So I just spoke with the executive director of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, Jeff Mullins, I believe is his name. Really good dude. And he referenced, I think, the Chuck Norris Combat League, Kenny and Sean, that basically had a scoring system, I think a 5-point scoring system, that your average round would be a 5-3. And a super close round would be scored a 5-4. And then maybe your prototypical 10-8 would be a 5-2. And that intrigued me. I know there's a million things we could talk about, Sean. Open scoring, noise canceling headphones for the judges, expanding the judges from 5 to 3. There's a million things we could do. But do you believe that the scoring system, I mean, the language is terrible, but the scoring system itself, do you believe it to be fundamentally flawed for modern day mixed martial arts?
No, as long as you have the right judges. There are very, very few judges in the world who can score it really well. And we see that when the UFC goes to Texas, or when not just the UFC, anywhere else goes to Texas. You were on the PFL, obviously, doing the commentary last year. And the biggest problem with that was it was at the same time that the UFC were doing week in, week out in Nevada. So all the judges, Sal Di Mano, Chris Lee and all, they were all in Nevada. All the great English judges were in England, and there was very few. There was a lot of local judges. And what do we have? The biggest robbery last year, what was it? I think we would have probably all agree, Rory McDonald, Gleison Tebow. And it was in PFL because the best judges were in the UFC that weekend judging in Las Vegas. So there aren't that many great judges. And as I said before, the criteria, the way we can argue all day about the way it's written. I actually like the way it's written, but once you get into it and once you dig deep in it, and it doesn't matter, like it's 3.5 pages, and I think it's 3.5 pages for a reason, so people can actually read it. So it's not, so people kind of don't stay away from it, or not afraid of it. It could be 50 pages and no one would ever read it. So I think that's maybe part of the reason why it's like that as well. But I think it makes sense. Like you see at the very top of the scoring criteria, it says MMA is an offensive sport, and it's scored that way. Like a lot of these conversations as well, I think should start with the sport. And start with what's good for the sport. And I think offense is good for the sport, making the sport exciting. I hope we don't get into an open scoring debate, because I hate we
don't need to talk about that, but I feel like there's just, the language is so hypocritical, Sean. Like it literally will say you don't have to overwhelmingly dominate, and then that you do within the same fucking stanza, my man. Like we could really go through this. And we've done it on the show, so we don't need to. But, I know sometimes you take issue when people will say, like, numerically, how can round 1 be 10-9 Sterling and round 2 also be 10-9 Sterling?
That's the biggest issue.
So, but how do we solve that? Like, if that's our scoring system doesn't work, in my humble opinion. Like it doesn't. And you say, like, you and John McCarthy are aligned that I know I'm all over the place, that we only have 8 or 10 elite judges in the world. Then why does Sal D'Amato and Chris Lee disagree all the fucking time? Because I put them on that pedestal that you do, and they disagree all the fucking time.
Close rounds are close rounds, though. You have to remember that. Like a lot of these are like, Jan Sterling first round is a perfect example. Like, tell me what system, tell me what writing of a criteria could split that open. Like, maybe we could do it by stats, right? We could do it by stats. But what if Dan Henderson lands that one punch? Then the stats are useless. I feel like what we have right now, if we look, you don't really need to look into all the criteria. You don't really need to go down through it. Effective striking and effective grappling. Whoever has the better of that wins the round. We can look at it as simple as that. And that's the way MMA should be, because we want it to be an offensive sport. We want the person looking for the finish at all times. I spoke to a fighter, Will Fleury, who's a very good fighter. He'll probably be in the UFC in the next year. And I asked him, have you read the scoring criteria? Do you look at the criteria when you're going to fights? And he said, no, I just try to finish the fight at all times when I go in there. And no, I'm not saying every fighter should be like that. Fighters should absolutely fight to a game plan and everything. But that's the way MMA should be written, for it to be a more exciting sport. That's what MMA is. And I feel like the criteria is that. right? And when you're looking at who wins a round, it should be who gets closest to finish, who lands the more damage, who does the better stuff. And, you know, you were talking about John Jones. I caught the back end of it there as I was coming in. The reason John Jones's latest fights were closer than maybe his past fights would have been because the criteria changed. And when you're fighting from the outside, when you're fighting a more safe fight, and I love John Jones, I think he's a fantastic fighter, and I love that style. But that style isn't scoring as heavily under the new criteria as it is under the old criteria, because John Jones is maybe not the biggest knockout artist in the world. He's not maybe the biggest hitter in the world, whereas someone who comes in and maybe lands 2 or 3 shots on John Jones in a round after John Jones outscores him for most of the round can now win a round against John Jones. And I think that's good. I like that. And that's mostly the reason why I read the criteria. I agree with you that the criteria isn't specific enough the way it's written in those 3.5 pages. But my argument to why it works well is because for the judges and for the way they go through the criteria, it is extremely specific. It's very hard to achieve that level of specificity that those judges have achieved, but they do have it.
Kenny, what do you think about the 5-point score? So in that scoring system, right? Mm-hmm. Sterling Jan, right? So I would have gone 5-4 Sterling in the first round because it's super close. And I'll be quick on this. Then 5-3 for Sterling in rounds 2 and 3. And then I would have gone 5-3 for Jan in rounds 4 and 5. And the result would be 21-20 Sterling, not unlike a 48-47. So yeah, I get the same scorecard in a lot of respects, but you're then affording the judges a little bit of wiggle room there to deal with these close rounds. Like, I don't know. I just don't think we give the judges all the tools to succeed with our 10-9 must scoring system, you know?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, Sean, it seems like what you're talking about is that there's a change in perspective of the rules, not necessarily a change of the rules themselves. So that's a tricky thing. I don't know. And it seems like, you know, the judges are becoming more and more aligned on it. But then I think, you know, we see this dispute among certain rounds as well, because it is an art and not necessarily a science. And someone's perspective on that execution of those techniques are going to be different, or going to vary round by round and person by person, I guess. Would you agree with that? I
would. Funnily enough, I was actually talking to Mike Mazzulli, who's head of the ABC. He was over in Ireland in the last year at the Bellator card, and I was having a chat with him about the criteria. I kind of cornered him when someone missed away, and I chatted him for like an hour about it. And he was saying, do you know what? You sound to me like one of the guys I have. He's like, what's your background? And I told him like mathematics and economics, and go, oh yeah, the guy I have is an engineer. And he's like, well, you look at it the same way. I look at it in a very specific way.
Right.
And like, you know, I have no background in mixed martial arts apart from watching it for the last few years. And I know lots of the judges do have, and they'll look at it and they might see a choke and obviously know better than me. And when you're sitting cage side as well, as you know, the two of you can attest to very much. It's very, very different. There's a fly, it just flies in front of me. It's very, very different to see it there. You can feel the shots. You can see, you know, someone gurgling from a choke or something like that. It's very different to do it at home and look at it. But I would agree with you there. Like, I think we need to meld them both. And just as well what you said before that as well, the criteria in totality changed. I'm just looking here, August 2nd, 2016, but I think it changed on the 1st of January, 2017. What has changed in the last 6 months is just the 10-8 part. And look, talking to some people about it, I think they do want to get the wording changed. They can only do that once a year. That's the way the ABC do it. But what has changed, I was kind of told, it's not that the 3Ds, the dominance duration for the 10-8 is still there, but it's how they're applying it that has kind of changed. It's so, like, I can see their argument that they don't need to like immediately change it. It's just the way they're applying it has changed slightly, because all three still have to be there, or all three, you know, if all three are there, you can still give a 10-8. They're not taking that away. They're not saying if only 2 of the Ds are there, you can't give a 10-8. They're saying damage must be the most important part. In some ways, I think it's good, and I think damage, like there was some rounds that were too much. Someone was lying on top of someone for 5 rounds, or for 5 minutes, sorry, and it was a 10-8, and they didn't land really much. I don't think those should be 10-8. MMA is an offensive sport. I'll say it again, at the top of the rules. But now someone could be lying on top of someone, and not lying on top, and have top position for 5 minutes and landing good shots. Like, those are the type of rounds I like to see being given as a 10-8. Where they wouldn't be, you'd have to hurt someone really badly with the land big elbows, cut them open or something like that to get a 10-8 now. And I don't like that. Like, that to me is the biggest issue with the judging criteria over the last while. It's why judging has been more of a more of a debate in the last 6 months. And it's all stemming from this 10-8 changing, I think, because there was, as I said, it was very consistent. If you're in Nevada, and the European judges as well, fantastic. I would love to see more of them being brought over. I was watching the Tyson Fury fight at the weekend. There was one judge from Mexico, I think one from America, and one from Germany or somewhere. Why don't we bring the best judges in? Like the UFC, Bellator, PFL have plenty of money for 800 quid of a flight. Bring them in. Bring in the best judges to have them there, and do it that way, because we have a great system over here in the UK and Ireland where we have Cage Warriors, which is like UFC Light. They have KSW over in Poland. Those shows are absolutely massive. The judges doing that. Mark Goddard goes over there a lot. He does, the course with them. They have a great system of coming up. I would love to see those judges brought over. So, that number you said of 8 or 10 really good judges, it could rise to 20 really good judges very, very quickly. So that's another thing that I think we could improve judging with.
I'm fascinated by this conversation. Next time I'm going to book you for a full hour, and I've wanted to book you for a while, but
part of the reason, let's go. I've got 2 hours.
Part of the reason I did book you today was because in following your social media, I did notice that there was this change over the last 6 months, and I think that might be breaking news even to some of our UFC producers. I can't wait to talk to the folks in Vegas when I get there this weekend, to talk to Jeff Mullins and to talk to Mark Ratner, because this needs to be communicated. It really does. The open scoring thing, you and I are both against it. I'm against it because I think it effectively changes the sport and is totally unfair for the fighters. Real quick, why are you so adamantly against it?
Look, I think we look at open scoring. We said the fighters deserve to know the score, right? That's the big argument for open scoring, right? If let me ask you a question, John. If the score in an NFL game is 7 points to 3, right? What has happened?
One team is down 4.
No, but what has happened? How did it become 7-3?
Oh, right. One team scored a touchdown. The other was only able to kick a field goal. Right.
Very easy, right? If it's a soccer match and it's 1-1, Man United have scored 1 goal, Liverpool have scored a goal, right? We know it. Very easy. If the fight is 19-19, how did it come to that? It's very tough. How did he win a round? Okay, he won 1 round, he won another round. Did he have more effective grappling? Did he have more effective striking? Did he win by octagon control? What way it's so complicated to just throw out the scores there without having an explanation for those scores in the middle of the fight. That's the biggest issue for me. There are a myriad of issues. Matt Brown and Brian Barberena a couple of weeks ago, the whole crowd going insane after the 3rd round because Matt Brown lost it. Imagine if that was a 5-round fight and the score was read out after the 3rd round. Imagine the pressure on those judges. Remember a couple of years ago, there was Joe Rogan thought he saw a judge with his phone. I remember everyone was like going insane. Right. And it turns out it wasn't a judge. It was just an official. But why was everyone going insane about that? Because we thought the judge wasn't paying attention, right? That's the biggest issue. The judge wasn't watching the fight. Imagine if there's 20,000 Ohioans behind you roaring at you saying, you fucking idiot, you're blind.
You're right.
That's not off-putting. Like, that to me is a massive issue. And I'm looking at it very much from a judging perspective here. I'm sure other people look at it from other perspectives. But if you think it's going to make better judging, I think you're sorely mistaken. I think it's going to do nothing but make judging worse. And I also think it's going to make judges leave. And if we said you've only 8 great judges in America now, imagine if 2 or 3 of them leave, then we're in a very bad position. So that's the position I look at it from. There are some positives to open scoring, absolutely. I think if everyone understood the criteria, and I think if we had loads of judges, no problem, open scoring. But I don't think it makes sense right now.
Sean, one more for me now. Conversely, do you think they should be taken out of the arena and in a room separately to watch the fight, to not be influenced in that regard?
I don't think so. I wouldn't mind trying that to see how it works, but like everyone, the 3 of us, I've been sitting cage side watching a few fights as well. You can hear the crack of a shot. I remember I was at a fight, Fabian Edwards fight, and he's a very good Bellator fighter. And I was just after coming in doing an interview, I was kind of half watching the fight, and I was typing, putting up something, and I heard a crack. And next thing I saw his opponent falling, and I looked up at the screen. I saw he landed this massive kick to the body. You can hear that crack audibly in the arena that you can't at home. You just can't hear it at home. And the two, know that better than anyone else. You can see the choice. I think it's way better when you're cage side. Now, I know in the UFC and the UFC have the TV a lot of the time in front of the judges where they can watch it, if they're at a bad angle or something. I actually saw it at the weekend. I don't know if you noticed. Sal D'Amato was reffing one of the UFC fights, and a cameraman walked directly in front of him, and he pulled his leg and get out of my way. So that can be a big issue as well. But yeah, and also a massive issue as well. And this is a very judging specific issue, but there is a side of the cage where there's a door on, two sides of the cage where there's a door on it, and there's one judge that sits on that side of the cage. So two of the judges have this big open expanse they can see everywhere, but one judge has a fucking door like here in front of half his face, and just to look around like this, you know, to look. That is a big issue, and that's something I would love to see change. I don't know if you can only have a door on one side of the cage or move the judges somewhere else. That to me is a massive issue, and like it can happen. That Sterling Yan fight, if there was one, the first round, if there was one big shot, it could have changed that whole round. And imagine if that shot happened as the judge was going like this and he missed it. Then the judge is going to score it differently from the other judge. And everyone is saying, oh, why is Chris Lee and Sal Diamato different? It's because of this fucking cage, you know? Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Am I allowed to curse? My apologies.
Yes, of course.
That's what I was going to say. Sometimes, you know, their backs are, you know, they're fighting here, and I could land a shot and it might seem like I hit him, but maybe I didn't. It might seem like I missed him, but maybe I actually hit him, you know, depending on where the judge is on the screen. That's why I wonder if monitors or them having access to some other camera angles would help or hurt. It's a tricky situation. I don't know.
Yeah, I think like the fact that they do at the UFC shows, especially that they do have the feed in front of them and they can see it. It's great because if the cameraman does stand in front of you, or if you can, you know, if the two fighters are fighting in front of you and all you can see is their backs, to be able to look at the camera feed, that's great. And I think that really helps judges. You know, some shows don't have that, and you're going to have worse judging. That's why, like, people complain an awful lot about the level of judging in the UFC. It's actually fantastic. It really is. It's brilliant. And I think a lot of it is down to, you know, some people say, oh, Sal Diamato, he's terrible, or Chris Lee, he's terrible. The reason people say he's terrible is because 100 other people who've never fucking read the criteria has said he's terrible.
Right.
Like for someone like me and for the judges, it's so frustrating when you hear it's not the reality of the situation that people are taking as fact. It is the bullshit that people are taking as fact. Yeah. And that to me is the biggest issue. Fair enough. If your opinion that one judge is rubbish, give me a year of that judge's scores and tell me why those scores are bad, and then I will agree with you that he's rubbish. Right. I've some people at the end of the year, I was talking about we do the awards at the end of the year and I pick out the robbery of the year, and it was easy last year. We all know it was Rory McDonald and Gleison Tibau, but I was saying, like, I do the awards for our website and I try to get nominations, like 5 or 10 usually, and it's very hard. And I ask people, like, tell me, what fights do you think, if judging is so bad, tell me what fights you think are robberies from the last year. Give me 5 examples. And no one could. Like, there's very few. There's a lot of fights you can say, oh, look, I thought Sterling won, I thought Yan won, you know, I thought, you know, Cody won, I thought TJ won, whatever it might be. I know they both finished, but you get me. That happens a lot. But the actual robberies, people actually getting robbed these days at the highest level, it's almost non-existent from my view.
I agree. And my issue, as you can tell, is more with the scoring and the system than it is with the judges. But I will not sort of say that we're in this great state of UFC judging when experts like you and John McCarthy tell me they're only 8 or 10. Like, you're telling me that this job, like, they're the NFL quarterback, right? There are 32 NFL teams, right? There are probably only 15 really good NFL quarterbacks in the world. And all the backups are really fucking bad, right? Overall, like, can't start, right? And you're telling me that MMA judge is an even more selective profession. I know you've been asked a million times, like, why don't you judge? I know it's not because you don't have a martial arts background. Like, why don't you dip your toe in the water?
Because I have about 100,000 tweets out there about every start and about 10,000 podcasts. Yeah. Saying, this lad was rubbish in this, I couldn't judge. I could judge an amateur fight maybe or something like that. But,
but you know, obviously pro fighters and people like yourself get asked a lot if we need more elite judges. Yeah. Seems like the people that might be qualified aren't jumping at those opportunities.
But the people that are qualified are the people that are judging. Like, just because you're an ex-fighter, like, look at Frank Trigg. He has done it, right? And he's become a very good referee. He made a great decision last week in the UFC. I think he was judging one of the fights in Bellator this weekend, and I think he made a great decision on the tough fight to judge as well. But why haven't more, like, the question is, like, why don't we see more ex-fighters doing it? Well, why don't we? The reason we don't see them is because it takes years and you get paid nothing.
Yeah.
You know, what fighter is going to go out and, you know, I actually spoke to the Kansas commissioner there about a year ago or so. I was kind of asking him what people get paid. They get paid almost nothing. They get, you get a bit when you're at the UFC, and it's still not great pay or at Bellator level. But if you're the 5 years to get to the UFC level, where you have to be judging week in, week out for $20 maybe, what fighter who's had 10 years of a career, who might have a few $100,000 if they're lucky in the bank, or a few million in the bank. What fighter is going to do that? What fighter is going to drive 5 hours to get to an arena and do it week in, week out to get to the very top level? Nobody. You can't just simply turn up and say, I was the next fighter, let me judge. We've seen some of them. You know, I've seen a couple of them around different places, and they haven't been good. You need to study the criteria. You need to do what the judges are doing all the time. And we don't only have 8 or 10 top judges. We have 8 or 10 top judges in America. We have many more worldwide.
No, of course.
Pay that money and get those people in, and then we will have, I said it already, we'll have a lot of better judging. It's not easy to become one of the best judges in the world. It really, really isn't. It takes a lot of dedication. Like, even if you start off and you say, I'm going to become one of the best judges in the world, to tell me you're like 2 or 3 years in and you haven't got a shout from Cage Warriors yet, or you haven't got a shout from CFFC, or you haven't got a shout from, never mind the UFC, never mind PFL, never mind Bellator, and you're still judging on a rinky-dink show in someone's garage, 2.5 years later, just to get there. That's what these judges have to do. That's how they grew, and that's how they became the best judges in the world. And someone with a lot of money in the bank certainly isn't going to do that.
Right.
And maybe the people with, that want to do it, start out wanting to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm certainly not going to.
Right,
There's enough shows around here as well to do it. Like, and it's a very hard thing to become.
Yeah. Well, no, and I think you make a great point. Like anything else in life, you got to get repetitions, you got to evolve and get good at the job. And I was in an elevator with Sal D'Amato and Derek Cleary recently, and they're 2 guys that I believe are elite judges. And I said to Sal, I was like, dude, I'll defend you until I'm blue in the face when you score, Jack Hermanson over Sean Strickland, because over the course of a calendar year, you're fucking money. And I think Sal's the best, and I've said repeatedly, like, if I was a judge, like, I would have a lot of wayward random round scores that are bad over the course of a year. So I agree that these guys are pretty good. We're going to have you back on, but we got to fly. If you want more from Seán Sheehan, and why would you not, check out the Severe MMA podcast, also the Sheehan Show at Sherdog.com, and on Twitter every Saturday night. I get off the air, and this is one of the feeds that I go to, at Seán Sheehan BA. My man.
Not a good thing.
Always a good thing, because it's like, for me, I have no ego when it comes to my scorecard, and I say every week it should be tossed out, but your scorecard means something, my man.
I don't know about that. Thanks, lads.
Thanks
for having me.
Sean.
You're the best. There he is,
Thanks,
Seán Sheehan, with us on the Anik and Florian podcast. I could talk to that guy all fucking day. I mean, I literally have 7 questions that I didn't even get into. But I didn't have the exact hypocritical 10-8 language that was in there. But right, it's like, Ken-Flo, isn't it nuts that, like, over the last 6 months, like, there has been a perspective change and some communication of that change to the judges, but certainly not to the MMA masses or the fan base or the promoters. It's fucked, man.
Yeah, a lot of it kind of just doesn't make sense. Yeah, and again, with anything else, we're creatures of habit, and we don't like change, and to have some kind of change, especially positive change, takes time. So I'm curious to see how this is going to evolve over time. So yeah.
All right, anything that we missed, get at us at AnikFlorianPod. But we got to spin it forward here. I know we've been keeping MMA Takes podcast Brian Petrie on hold, but we got to get to the pronunciation of the week, and we got to call on Cody Merrow. What's Blue-Eyed Cody doing there in New Jersey today, huh? What's up, kid?
Collecting my winnings on a good night of PFL betting and UFC gambling, from our boy MMA Takes. Just cleaning up.
All right, so the pronunciation of the week this week, his first name is Gerald, longtime Rufus Sport product. They call him GM3, had a bunch of submissions last year, and people fuck up his surname all the time. I promise you I won't do it this weekend, but Cody, this is a repeat entry on the pronunciation of the week. How do you pronounce GM3's name?
This is Gerald Mearshart, correct?
Oh, I mean,
I hate you.
let's hear Gerald.
Playing the file now.
Mearshart.
Oh, full name, please.
Oh, Gerald Mearshart.
And a couple of slow ones.
Gerald Mearshart.
Ken-Flo?
Gerald Mearshart.
No, there's a difference between Mearshart and Mearshart. And I had it wrong too. So, I mean, jeez.
So, all right.
Like
so,
it's funny though, because my last name has the same MER part, but mine's Marrow.
Yeah.
Like bone marrow. But his is Murr. Like if people called me Murrow, I'd be pissed.
We're still trying to get that nickname for you to stick, Cody Bone Marrow.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, nicknames, bro. I mean, if some people would take my nickname advice, maybe they would have done better in their recent fights. I'm just saying.
Ooh, little shot at the dark horse Chris Dawkins there. What a dick. Gerald Mearshart, though, for the broadcast this weekend. It is not Mearshart, despite that double E in the first syllable of his last name. Cody, we'll see you on the back end for the MERRROW seconds here in a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I got some good stuff for you guys.
All right. That's it for the pronunciation of the week. It is now time for the main event challenge.
It's the main event challenge. Anik.
The time is most definitely now.
Florian.
I finish fights. I'm going to do everything possible to win.
The main event challenge. The John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
Oh, give me all that big gun Brian Petrie energy during the fight week. What's up, kid?
What's up, guys?
I'm sorry to keep you waiting.
No, it's all good.
Did you listen to any of the scoring conversation with Seán Sheehan?
I did. Yeah, he's great. I followed Seán for a while. I'm not a big, my opinion on scoring, obviously I get frustrated with it. Let the fighters decide if they want open scoring. They're the ones fighting. Some people are opposed to it, some people aren't. Some people like it. If the fighters want it, why not? They're the ones risking it. As a capper, I don't want open scoring because there goes your live lines. You know what I mean? Because the judges come out and be like, hey, and then a guy who I think has momentum, who's at a plus whatever, I'm fucked. But I don't dive too much into the scoring. I think I don't have a real strong opinion on it. I know you guys get on it a lot too. I just kind of trust my eyes a little bit as opposed to the language, which I probably not the smartest thing, but that's why you don't ever see me banging on judges too much on Twitter.
Well, and I'm not trying to disrespect those who wrote these rules and regulations. And I understand it's a tricky process. I used to work in the writing center at Gettysburg College, and I would do nothing but edit all day long, papers, long form stuff. So I just feel like this could really just be cleaned up and more concise and just more ingestible for everybody. But obviously they're not looking at me to rewrite the rules. All right. So another good week for you, huh? I mean, so your wife, does she appreciate all the money that you're bringing to the family with your
I hope so. No, it's funny. I'll be in my office watching tape or something like that. My daughter comes in, it's like, hey, we're having popcorn. I'm like, okay, daddy's working. She's like, no, you're not. I'm like, well, kind of I am because I'm on a nice little run here. I'm locked in. Wife is super supportive of it. She, she likes, when I win and stuff. She's not fully invested into it yet, right? She does. I mean, we bought a new fridge. I'm buying a new bed frame here in a minute. Had another good week, hit a 5-1 parlay with some hefty units on it this weekend. Nice. Claudio Puelles coming through, hit that 4. I can't believe he was a 4-1 plus 400 by submission, which I didn't think he'd submit Clay that quickly, but I knew he would probably get it eventually. And overall good week. I mean, Donnie Madge, Kenny and I talked about it. Donnie Madge hurt me. Yeah. He was up. I was counting my money. I'm like, I could get a pair of shoes. I could get this. Yeah. He's up 2 rounds and gets clipped. I'm like, fuck, I can't believe it. So, but yeah, wife's appreciative. She's supportive for sure.
You're going to be doing this full time. There's no doubt about it. Going to leave the Anik and Florian podcast in the dust. Just say, hey, remember us? Be like, sorry, boys. All right. 4 picks to make this week. First one for us is going to be at middleweight, guys. Fighters with a combined 30 UFC fights between them. Chris Jotko minus 160. Gerald Meerschaert plus 140. GM3, a perfect 3-0 in 2021 BP. As many submissions as he had wins. Your thoughts on him here against Jotko, who has sort of been on the fringe of contention for some time.
Yeah, I don't know about this line. I hope Kenny and I, with our big, powerful brains, move this line because I love GM3 in this spot. I can't believe he's showing the dog here. Jocko doesn't finish anybody. He can't even finish a bag of chips. He's had one finish all the way back in 2016. He's got that karate style. He blitzes in, but he likes to set his own pace. He likes to squeak out a decision. Every fight he's in, even when it looks like he's winning or dominating, it's very close. GM3 is a pure finisher. This guy fucking lives in the chaos. He can strike, he can grapple, it goes to the ground and usually lights out. He's got every kind of submission. His striking, I think, is slept on because the last time we saw him strike, he got knocked out by Chimaev, but that was in a quick burst. But he's a real durable dude. You look at the Deron Wynn fight, he was standing up with Deron Wynn, who's a decent little boxer in his own right, nice little power, and he was boxing him up. And I think people forget how good Gerald Meerschaert is. And Jocko getting this number, I'm not sure why, because if you look at the resumes, it's not even close. And I don't want to disrespect Jocko, but he's a decision fighter, he's a point fighter, and GM3 is not about that. He's going to push forward, put him on his back. Jocko does have decent takedown defense, but I think when GM just makes it ugly, just gets in there and grinds on him, it's going to be a problem. I love this. I'm hammering GM3. When the line moves, I'm doubling down, hammering him again. I like GM3 by submission.
Very interesting take, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. Jotko has won 4 of 5. Kenny, he outpointed Misha Serkinov last October in what was Misha's middleweight debut. What do you think about this fight at middleweight? And ultimately, are you going Jotko or Meerschaert?
You know, I thought that Petrie would take the bait on Jotko, but no, he's too sharp. He's not buying it. I'm not either. You know, listen, I like GM3 here as well. I think Meerschaert is the guy who, if they get a finish, it's going to be Meerschaert. You look at his submission streak and his ability to do things on the ground. I think he can certainly get it done there. No question about that. And I also think his size and his ability, you know, the fact that he's improved his striking over the years makes him a problem there as well. So can Jotko win the fight? Sure. But I like Meerschaert here as well.
I remember seeing Jotko early on, I think against Bradley Scott, maybe in his UFC debut or one of his early fights, thinking, dude, this dude kicks like a motherfucker. He's going to be a real problem. Just hasn't necessarily taken that next step, despite being close to the top 15 and maybe even ranked at one point in time. All right. Our listeners want Ken-Flo to lead off on some of these selections. So we are here for the, you know, we're here for the listenership. I mean, you guys run the show. So Kenny's going to lead us off on the main event today. And also the lightweights right here. Couple of former featherweights. They are Grant Dawson, -145, and Jared Gordon, +125. Odds courtesy of DraftKings Sportsbook. So Grant Dawson, interesting story here, Ken-Flo. 5-0-1 in the UFC. Last fight was a draw against Ricky the Gladiator Glenn. Now Dawson is training and living, I believe, in South Florida, where Gordon has been for several years. Jared Gordon also has some momentum. Big fight here at 55, Ken-Flo. Which way you going, Grant Dawson or Jared Gordon?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. They kind of have similar styles in that they both, you know, like to hit their takedowns. They use their strikes mostly to kind of get to the clinch and work their ground game a little bit. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. I think it's a close one. Geez, man, I'm a big fan of Gordon, but I think at this stage of the game, Grant Dawson might have the edge just because I think it's going to end up being a grappling fight. And Grant Dawson might be able to outpoint him or outposition him a little bit there. So I think speed is going to be a factor. And I think Dawson's a little quicker than Gordon. It should be close. I'd love to see Gordon go out there and pull it off, but I give the slight edge to Dawson here by decision.
Yeah, I think there are going to be some interesting grappling exchanges here, Brian. I don't know how you forecast it. Jared Gordon has won 3 in a row, all of them by decision, dating to that 2019 first-round knockout loss to Charles Oliveira. Your thoughts on him here as the dog against Grant Dawson?
Yeah, it's a little surprising he left Krause's gym. You know, Krause's gym, I mean, this is like Krause's kind of homegrown boy a little bit. Left the gym and Krause is doing great things in there and went to AT&T. Maybe he wants a son. Maybe he wants to live next to JA. I don't really know what the move was because he's looked pretty good in the UFC. He's got that grinding style. But I've never been blown away with him. You know, I've always been kind of on him, and I don't know why. Maybe I'm missing something. There's like James Krause talked about it. Other people talk about it. He might just be like a feel guy. You might just need to see him in there. He's kind of like a Darren Elkins, right? Not as damage ward as Darren Elkins, but he's just like, he's going to will his way to victory, right? The Leonardo Santos fight, he was losing that fight, and he came back and he knocked him out. It was a great knockout. But, you know, he has this thing about him, this intangible thing that I'm missing. And Jared Gordon was a guy that I was kind of on as well, but then he goes out to Fight Island by himself. Everyone in his family, everyone in his corner, all have COVID. Goes by himself. Iron lung corners him against Chris Fishgold, who's crafty on the ground, and he stifles him. 30-27, looks great. That has to be impossible to do. Then he goes out there against Danny Chavez, who's a very tough, durable guy.
Yeah.
And then another one, the Joe Selecki, who's a great grappler. He was a split decision. Some people have different opinions on it, but he looked good in that fight. And Gordon's cardio and his pressure is very impressive to me. Stand up, I think, is going to be a watch. I think both guys are still learning a little bit. I think Gordon has a little bit better boxing. I think Grant Dawson pushes just a little bit, but he is a good-sized dude. And with AT&T, he's learning some new tricks. I hopped on his Instagram. I saw him hitting mitts. You know, you can only tell so much hitting mitts, but he looks a little bit the same to me. And Gordon at Stanford, I think is just constantly getting better. And when you're giving me a plus number on Jared Gordon, I'm going to take it. This is going to be a slimy decision. This is going to be a very close fight. So this is going to be a good live betting opportunity if you can live bet in your state, depending how the momentum shifts. But I see Gordon maybe losing the first round and then taking over that third, and it's going to come down to that second round of how it scores. But I like Gordon by decision here.
And I'm looking forward to sitting down with Grant Dawson and asking him just about all the information and how much of that can be overload, you know, as he gets ready for this fight. But I do believe that Grant Dawson is going to be heard from in the future. But yeah, interesting number on Jared Gordon to be sure. All right, co-main event. We got Ray Longo on hold, fellas. Andre Arlovsky minus 135. How pissed is he going to be, by the way, in about 5 minutes? Co-main event, Andre Arlovsky minus 135. You can see, Ray, I'm talking super quickly. Jake Collier plus 115. How about Andre Arlovsky, Bry, right? Got to put him in the Hall of Fame. He's 43 years old, and he's winning, right? Going for a 4th straight win in UFC appearance number 38.
I mean, he's a man. I mean, this fucking guy with the chest hair, with the beard, he's a man. I am shocked that him and I are the same gender. I can't grow facial hair. This guy and I are both men. He is much more of a man than me. He's 43, and he's getting better. He's not slowing down, and he changed his game. Like a lot of people, a lot of guys like me, when I look at a guy who's like 38, I go, nah, he's the same fighter he was 4 years ago. Not Arlovsky. He switched up. Instead of putting his chin on the line and brawling, moves his feet in and out. Controls everything at his own pace. The only time he's lost in the past couple of years is Tommy Aspinall. He's a fucking stud. Right. Then you got Collier, who's an interesting guy to me in the sense that he's not a heavyweight, right? He took 2 years off, comes in a heavyweight, doesn't really look all that great. Looked frightened against Aspinall. Looked like he was stepping in a haunted house. Got sent home in 45 seconds, right? Then he gets a kind of a layup with a heavyweight John Vellante, shows a little bit of a cardio, kind of, right? And then he split decision over no more Carlos Felipe, and then a complete mauling over Chase Sherman, who just didn't even show up that fight. Yeah. So I'm perplexed on this guy, right? He's a decent grappler. His stand-up's coming a long way, but there's a lot of questions I have on Collier, but I don't need any of those answers. I like Arlovsky big here. I think he can control the distance, put together a 3-round display, and he doesn't have a finished knockout win since 2015 over Travis Brown. So I might want to sprinkle a little KO there, because I think Jake Collier is susceptible to getting hit a little bit. Arlovsky still has power, even though he's fighting a more measured pace here. But I like Arlovsky by decision as the official pick, but I will be sprinkling that KO prop there.
And wouldn't that be something if Arlovsky got his first finish in about 7 years? Ken-Flo, what do you have for us on the co-main?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it quick. Great breakdown by Petrie. I'm going with Arlovsky here. I think he gets it done as well.
All right, main event. And it will be the first headlining spot in the UFC for Ecuador's Marlon Chito Vera. He is the plus 110 underdog against Rob Font, the minus 130 favorite. 3rd straight main event for the Central Massachusetts kid Rob Font. Went 5 rounds with the former champs Cody Garbrandt and Jose Aldo last year. And now he puts his number 5 ranking on the line against 8th ranked Chito Vera. Huge fight at 135 pounds. Ken-Flo, lead us off, kid. You going Marlon Vera, or you going with the New Englander Rob Font?
Dude, tremendous fight here.
What a fight, huh?
I've been going back and forth on this one big time. I think Font is a tremendous talent. The improvements that he's made, significant. Same for Marlon Vera. And when I see both those guys, I know they're going to be strong for 5 rounds. For me, I like the fact that, Marlon has shown big improvements. He's shown heart. He finds a way to win no matter what. He believes in himself. I think 5 rounds kind of favor him a little bit. And honestly, it's like, where do I see the value? Well, whoever the underdog is. And right now, it seems like Marlon Vera is the underdog. Yeah. I like him here. I think he's tremendous in the clinch. I like the fact that he's probably going to be a little tall, a little rangier. Absolutely nasty with those knee elbow combinations. Great calf kicks from the outside as well, where he gets, a little bit vulnerable, I think, is on the feet in the boxing exchanges. I think that's where Rob Font can expose him a little bit. But Chito has a chin for days, and I think he knows how to make the proper adjustments in fight in real time. So I like Chito here. I'm gonna go with Chito.
Fascinating breakdown. I thought Rob Font fought really admirably against Jose Aldo. I do think over 25 minutes, though, Chito, right, has a lot of different weapons and a lot of damaging strikes, and didn't get off to a great start against Frankie Edgar. You know how he finished that fight, obviously, Brian. Close main event. I can't wait to get to Vegas to call it. Marlon Vera, Rob Font, Cincinnati's finest. Who do you like?
Jeez, Kenny's he's sharp. Guy's a fucking sharp. This is such a good main event. I love it. I mean, listen, Chito Vera is made for 5 rounds. I mean, this guy's just been jonesing for a 5-round fight. He only gets stronger. Like, if the Aldo fight was 5 rounds, what would have happened? That's a big question, because that was very close. Aldo backpacked him a little bit, but Font got the 5-round treatment against Cody Garbrandt. Looked very good. Got wrestled a little bit in that fight. Touched Cody a little bit, but didn't put him away, which is, guys have been able to do that. So maybe through a pause. I mean, Rob Font has great boxing, but does he have great power? That's something on the upper levels we're going to find out. But he does have great boxing. He's durable. He's tough. He's pretty big for the weight class as well. But man, Chito's just mean, man. I love Chito. He's talking shit to Frank Yeager, who's like the nicest guy in the world. In that fight, front kicks him and still talking shit. Like, I love that edge on Chito, and I've been wanting to see that 5-round fight. But listen, it's a close fight. I'm going to go the opposite of Ken. I'm going to go Rob Font. I have family in Newton, Mass. Let's go, Mass. Yeah, let's go, Massachusetts, baby. Give me Rob Font. I don't love it. I do like Chito. I think the people who tail us a lot maybe want to go with Kenny on this one, but it is a coin flip for me, and I think this is going to be a banger of a main event.
All right, if you want more from Brian Petrie at MMA Takes Podcast, enjoy the new bed frame. Newton, Mass, by the way. I did live there for about a year.
Let's go.
Your family probably makes some money there living in Newton. Ken-Flo, not far from there in Dover, Massachusetts. But hey, man, great to see you. Appreciate your time, and wish you the best on the board, my man.
Yeah, you guys are the best. I'll see you.
All right, there he is, Brian Petrie from the MMA Takes Podcast with us every week now on the Anik and Florian Podcast. James Krause will still be heard from. Just relax out there. But we really appreciate everything that Brian Petrie has brought to the show, almost as much as we appreciate what Ray Longo continues to bring to the Anik and Florian Podcast.
It's now time for the Ray Longo Minute.
I want you to punch a hole in his fucking chest. That's what I want.
The Ray Longo Minute. Starring Ray Longo. The John Anik and Kenny Florian Podcast.
Hi, Ray.
Holy shit!
There's the biggest fan of our podcast. Sleeping.
Let me tell you something. That kid is off the hook, man.
He knows his stuff.
No, he is he's good. That guy is really good.
Yeah. Honestly, somebody's gonna pick him up. I mean,
yeah, if you guys
doing this full time right now,
if you guys were responsible adults, you'd cut that kid free and let him go. If you guys were responsible and you wanted to help somebody out, that kid should be cut loose because he's good, man.
You're not free from us, and neither is Petrie.
That's right. I sent him a check. It wasn't as fat as yours, but so I can't even apologize for being late to you because you'll maybe think it's so. But I do apologize for I guess we're even now. Is that the fucking dog? And
man, how the hell can you hear that? Oh, we locked her. We locked her out.
We're even now. So how are you doing other than overdue for a haircut?
Yeah, no, my hair's growing. I just it's going down Thursday. I just saw Lauren Braccia, the girl that cuts my hair in the gym. Yeah. Holy crap. It was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. This shit just doesn't stop. Which is I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, I mean, when I walked in the gym, it was brutal. She goes, What'd you do to your hair? I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. Right. No, I mean, I had to draw attention to it, but it speaks to your health and just your overall
my vitality. Yes, thank you.
So my son will be 4 in June, Ken-Flo. I know.
Happy birthday.
Well, thank you. But I bring him up because he has never been to the barber, right? So we cut his hair in the bathtub, right? So today he goes to school looking like a fucking cheetah because he's got bald spots all over his hair. And it's like, hey, man, I don't even want to know what his preschool teachers think of me sending him to school like this, but he won't sit still, and he won't, I shaved his head once, didn't like the bzz, won't go to the barber shop, so we got to do what we got to do.
Oh man.
So I went to an auction, Ray, on Saturday night, and it was the first time I had an auction paddle in my hand. Have you ever been to an auction before? You got to have been to an auction.
No.
Big time. Never?
No, but I've seen it. I've seen them on TV. I get what you're talking about.
Anyway, so I just have a few other things, and then I promise we'll get to the MMA talk. So my daughter Tatum did celebrate her birthday 3 days ago, and she's like, Daddy, for my birthday, can you shave your beard?
Wow.
And it was like, of course, if you want me to shave anything you want, but my wife doesn't think I look very handsome when I shave my head, when I shave my face, down to the bone. So I got to go meet all her coworkers at the live auction, the day after Tatum's birthday. So I'm like, what do I do? Do I shave my face for my daughter? My wife wants me to look handsome, and she feels like that can't be accomplished without the beard. I didn't know what to do. Both of the women in my life wanted different things, right?
Is this what we're talking about right now? Seriously.
Are you that bored by that?
Come on, Chrissy, tell me he looks good no matter what he does to his beard or his hair.
So how was your weekend? Did you have any local athletes competing before we get to the UFC and the PFL and some of the national telecasts?
No, this was a quiet weekend for the gym, at least way. Yeah.
First time in a long time.
First time, a lot of sparring, though, a lot of fights coming up. It's probably about 10 guys fighting within the next month, I would say, 3 weeks.
All right. Well, we're a little late today because we had a scoring expert on today, Seán Sheehan, who really dives into this stuff. And you might enjoy listening back to some of the thoughts he had on Sterling and Jan because it's the most recent high-level championship fight where there were some rounds in question. We spent a lot of time on that. But
keep me in. Don't keep me in suspense.
You got to watch the podcast, Ray.
Yeah, are you kidding me?
He's in the business. No, even after talking to him, I still say 10-8 for round 2. I hope he doesn't listen to the whole show, but he sort of outlined why you're not going to like this, Ray. But basically, over the last 6 months, there has been sort of an initiative for change when it comes to 10-8 rounds that is not affected in the actual language of the scoring. So when you have this thesis statement about this kangaroo court, I mean, that's, you've never been more accurate. I mean, there's actually conversations going on that affect scoring change that the masses aren't privy to. I don't even know what to say.
I got to tell you, man, I'm not, because I think, I think Big John, I thought he was fine with the Aljo thing. I even told that to Aljo, and then he kind of came back and said he'll never watch a fight with his friends again, because that round was very close. But then he went on to something with the rules of the 10-8, but the secretary didn't type them in, and I got to go back and listen to that, man. It was so crazy I don't even know. I'm not looking to start anything. I'm just saying, but it was definitely said he called the president. He doesn't give us the guy's name. I don't know who the hell he's talking about, but the guy told him the secretary, I think, and John, if I'm wrong,
you're probably not wrong.
I got to go back and listen again, but only because you brought this up with the kangaroo court.
Yeah.
But the secretary didn't type in the right rules. I'm like,
oh, government.
Is he saying? Is this what he's saying? It is bizarre to me. Bizarre. So
that's insane.
Well, I would think the secretary got fired and the whole nothing, zero. I don't think, but I could be wrong on that. But I got to go back and listen. But it was something where the dog ate my homework. That's what it sounded like to me. What happened to you? No, the dog ate it. The secretary forgot to type it in. Therefore, everybody's right. Those really were the rules, and I don't know. Whatever. You're never getting to the bottom of this.
Nothing makes sense.
Kenny. The only job in the world. I think you'd have to kill somebody. You're still not going to get reprimanded, fired, nothing. That's a job for life.
I'm so frustrated because as I sit here with the Association of Boxing Commissions and Combative Sports Unified Rules of Mixed Martial Arts, it's missing a fucking page with the 10-8 language. I keep going back to it. That's why I'm all
there you go. Yeah,
a few other things I want to get to with the great Raymond Peter Longo, as distracted as I am by that glorious lettuce up top. And not a fucking whitehead in your hair at plus 60. It's amazing.
No. There's a lot of grays in there. Trust me.
You color it?
No, well, get the hell out of here. I don't even comb it. You look at what do you think you're looking at? You think I'm sitting there coloring? I would have pasted
nice
it
auburn
down.
Hair.
No, I do snip them out if I see them though.
Yeah,
halfway. I cut them halfway out.
So I don't know if you watched the UFC or the PFL or any of the mixed martial arts that was out there over the weekend. Did any of those performances jump off the screen to you? Andrade, you see Jessica Andrade?
Andrade was phenomenal. I thought Lemos was going to win that fight, believe it or not. I thought she had the power in her hands. I love her boxing.
Yeah.
But it just never even got started, and she got caught in a little scramble, and that was it, man. It was over. So good for Andrade, dropping back down to 115, and she's a beast either way. I mean, she's a handful. So congrats to her.
It's sort of disappointing the way that Shevchenko fight went for her because it has really been a great run for her otherwise. So Henry Cejudo seems to be back in the mix. That was also on my list for you today. It looks like he met with Sean Shelby and Hunter Campbell. Seems as though Aljamain Sterling does have an appetite for that fight. Do you know anything about Dillashaw's relative health and how soon Aljamain could get back in there?
No, I honestly know absolutely nothing except what people are showing me and telling me, and I'm reading. I did hear about the Cejudo thing. Look, either he's going to fight anybody. It doesn't even matter. It really doesn't matter. He's the champ and he's going to defend his title, but he's going to take a couple of months off for sure.
Right.
That I know. He's not going back in there in 2 months. I mean, that was a long year for him, and I think he deserves a couple of months off.
No, there's no doubt. And I think whether it's Cejudo or Dillashaw, or maybe Jose Aldo has an outside chance there, although I would still like to see them do Jose Aldo and Dominic Cruz, but it's not going to be Petr Yan, despite what some people are hopeful for.
I mean, the question is who's MERRROW fighting too, because I'm telling you, nobody even,
on that, Ray.
Nobody even mentions his name. I think Dominic Cruz was a possibility for that. That's what I heard because everybody else was booked.
I'm going to see Dom this weekend, so I'll be able to maybe pick his brain a little bit or not, just depending on which Cruz he shows up. You know, he might give me nothing.
No, you know what you do when you just, if you really put him in a good spot, just ask him how Keith Peterson is doing when you see him, and then proceed from there.
It was funny. I was running with my twin brother in Jacksonville a couple weeks ago, and we saw Keith Peterson. He's like, "You should tell Dom he does smell like cigarettes, but he doesn't smell like doesn't smell like alcohol." No, I mean, I think Cruz and MERRROW rankings wise makes a whole lot of sense, and that would, Dom wants to fight somebody ranked above him, and MERRROW would qualify. So, I think for Dom, it's like he wants 3 rounds, and I'm not necessarily trying to put words in his mouth, but I think 3 rounds co-main event on a pay-per-view or even a featured prelim makes more sense than a 5-round main event against MERRROW.
Why is that? Let's go 5.
Why do you? You're a guy.
I think MERRROW deserves a 5-round fight.
I agree, but Team Cruz don't need no 5-round fight against MERRROW Dwalish. We'll take a 3-round fight on pay-per-view. I mean, Dominic doesn't need the main event shine at this stage of his career. He's the consensus greatest manweight of all time.
Maybe we'll do like a tough man thing. We'll just make it a 1-round fight. So let him go crazy.
Oh, I love that that 10-minute pride, that round
that
one.
Right.
Oh.
What other fights? I thought Rafael Stotts looked really good.
I did not see that, but I'm happy for him because he's been at this a long time.
And the other kid, Patchy Mix, looked good. I saw those fights. And the PFL, man, refresh me. They had some good fights too.
Dare you? Clay Collar, Jeremy Stevens.
Oh, there you go. I mean,
that was a good fight.
This guy,
right?
that's a great fight. Thank you, Kenny, for that.
Wild.
My brain
we led the show
fried.
with the PFL today, Ray.
I'll tell you, that kid Khaled, he could fight, man. He could box and he could take a punch.
Really
Holy shit.
Crazy.
He is crazy, that guy. But I love watching him fight. I thought Stevens was going to win that fight too. Before the fight,
man.
He
tried to.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, with Jeremy, he's been around for so long and you never know. He's going to a new organization. Is this, is he doing it for a paycheck? Does he really want to fight?
No.
He really wanted to win that fight.
No, they fought. That was no paycheck fight.
No.
They fought, man. Thank you for bringing that up. I thought that fight was probably the best fight over the weekend for sure.
You would have lost some money, it sounds like, this weekend.
Yeah, it was. I gotta start calling this guy Petrie.
I'm telling you.
Right?
Dude, that guy just amps me up, that guy.
Oh, he's the best. I said off the top of the show that, like, Clay Collard has become appointment viewing for me. There are a few fighters outside the UFC that I will go out of my way to watch. And, some people wonder why I'm not watching every single MMA show. And I guess it's because I have 3 kids and
without a doubt
UFC events to call.
Right.
But Clay Collard, Kayla Harrison, like, appointment viewing for me, to be sure, as well as some other fighters for one and other promotions. So good stuff. All right, before we let you go, Steve Lee, pro debut. Like, when is this happening? Can I attend? I'll pay for my own ticket if need be. I want to be there for his pro debut.
Really?
Let's go, Steve.
Yeah.
May 20th, Atlantic City.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's like a 45-minute plane ride for you.
I will be in Las Vegas. So unfortunately, I will only be there.
So I think
that's exciting.
See, I think you knew that before you even asked the question. So I think you had this whole planned out. So
no.
I'd love to get you at one of those Ring of Combats. Come on, you'd be a big shot there.
Yeah,
you get treated like royalty.
I would love to come to a Ring of Combat event.
Hey, you know what this kid? Yeah, go ahead. Go. No. I was just thinking of. Do you guys remember Max Kellerman when he was first coming up in boxing? It was you guys might not even have been born, man. I think I'm going to say he was around in the 80s. But this is who this kid reminds me of. Kellerman was a juggernaut at the beginning with his boxing, the analysis, and he came out of nowhere. 100% reminds me of this guy. They got that infectious vibe of just. It's so fluid when he's talking. Like I don't know how much he's planning for this, but it seems like he's just off the top of his head. Is like his impromptu speaking is off the charts, man. No, his kid's good, man.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I thought you were talking about Max Kellerman doing a hip hop.
No. But back in the no, Kellerman back in the day he had that same type of energy, man. And I was like, who is this guy? Like, where did he come from? But he nailed it. He ended up going on and obviously doing big things. So I see the same thing.
Speaking of nailed it, you fucking nailed it today as usual. Right?
That is what I do today. How come? Wait, why is it today though?
So Ken-Flo had a specialized training obligation yesterday in South Carolina. If you really want
specialized
to know. Shooting guns and camouflage gear.
See, because
my wife was like, "You need to go do that."
Because I don't want to say, like the ABC is a kangaroo court and we just jumping all over the place with our dates. I want to hold to so people have faith in us. You know how many tweets I got this morning? Where's the show on my date?
See,
we are committed to Sundays going forward. Ken-Flo is a priority. He had a conflict, so I don't know what to tell.
My bad. It's my fault.
But rest assured, I'm flying a red eye after Marlon, Vera, and Rob Font this weekend, and we'll be back on the screws this Sunday with our UFC 74.
That's what I'm talking about.
Before I let you go,
go ahead. Go.
Rob Font, Chito, Vera. This is a huge fight at 135 pounds. I want to know who you think wins it.
I love Rob Font and that whole camp, but I think Chito just got the mindset and the will. There's a 5-rounder.
Yeah.
I think Chito gets it done. I think he's a problem. I think he's a major problem. And again, I think I'm just going mindset. I'm not even going technique at this point. But I think he's got the momentum, and I would say I go with Chito, not even getting any technical thing about
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of Chito Vera love on the program today. We'll see where that betting line closes.
I think he's got an edge to him that I think I don't think he feels like he's getting any respect, and he is good, and he gets better and better and better. And Rob Font is good though, man. I like those guys, but I think the more diverse guy is Chito, and I think his head's in the right spot, and that's what I'm going with.
It's a fucking great main event. It's yours on ESPN Plus. Early start time this weekend. You can find more from Ray Longo on social media at Ray Longo MMA and Minutemen be heard from. Let Ray know how much you love him and how you fast forward to the Ray Longo minute and don't listen to the rest of the podcast because it makes him feel pretty good. We got to go. Love you.
All right. Take it easy, guys.
Yeah, right.
Take care.
He's just not feeling my vibe today. Hated the Tatum story. I thought it was kind of funny.
Hated the what story?
Tatum. I thought it was kind of funny that my daughter's like, you have a clean face? And my wife's like, no, honey, he can't because he doesn't look really very good when he shaves his face.
Technically, there's times when your wife is embarrassed to even bring you around, basically.
When I shave.
John, if it makes you feel better, I'm in the same boat with Clark.
See?
He's like, never shave your face ever again. Yeah.
Cover up your face, guys. Cover up your face.
Wow. Hey, I don't even know what to say. I'm speechless.
Love you. We'll
take it easy. Love you guys. Take it easy, guys.
There he is. The Ray Longo Minute every week here on the Anik and Florian podcast. And of course, we close out the show with our producer in the MERRROW seconds. I am going to go plug in my computer because it's dying. So just give me a minute. I'm going to stay on the cans. I just got to plug in my fucking computer. Audio people aren't going to notice this. If you're on the video side, this is a little off-putting. What of it? Cody, how are you, bro?
Good. Just filling time here, filling airspace,
So what do you got for the MERRROW seconds today?
Well, so I was going to say, are you now retroactively saying you named Tatum after Jason Tatum? I mean, he's only 19, right?
I'm not. I'm not because our beloved former makeup artist, Susie Freeton, actually named Tatum. So we have a special story already. But I have bought a lot of Celtics gear for her that says, Tatum with his number 0 on. So it's a good question by you.
Well, rest in peace, Suze. Always thinking of you.
Thanks, buddy. What else you got?
So number one, UFC is staging an 8-man tourney across 4 weight classes to go down in Asia while you guys are over there in Singapore. It's specifically for Asian talent called The Road to the UFC. So there's going to be some extra fight content there on ESPN Plus for all you guys. Are you calling those shows, John? Is there anything you can reveal about that?
No, I know this was supposed to happen a long time ago, but COVID-19 intervened. I don't believe I will be calling those fights, but I don't have much for you. I don't have my flight to Singapore yet as we sit here April 25th. So should be coming down this week or next, hopefully.
Well, let's hope that the bar has been raised a little bit. The Asian talent's been a little, COVID obviously had a part of that, but the talent coming out of China since 2020 has not been the greatest. So hopefully adds to that. But Orichi Long was impressive last weekend.
Yeah, and we got a Chinese fighter, Tatsuro Taira, who I believe is making his UFC debut this weekend as well. So,
well, if you need any help, ask Ninja.
Actually, he's Japanese. He's Japanese. So,
I was gonna say that sounds like a Japanese name.
So number 2, just a couple notes on Fury and Ngannou. Was Fury's walkout the best of all time? Did you guys catch that?
I missed it.
It was incredible. 95,000 people in Wembley. I mean, the guy took 20 minutes to walk out, but he's a showman. I mean, there's no more confident fighter walking to a ring than Tyson Fury. So if you can catch that, I would definitely go back. I think it's the best walkout of all time.
Is this a real possibility, Ngannou and Fury?
So that's what I was going to say. Ngannou came into the ring. He was sitting courtside with his agent, and he and Fury were talking about doing a crossover fight in 2023 with boxing
MMA
fight
gloves.
with MMA gloves. Yeah. Which I think that does increase Ngannou's chances, does it not? I mean, Ngannou is one of those one-punch power guys. Anything can happen. But, I mean, Fury, you're talking about possibly the greatest boxer of all time. So the odds did come out. Do you guys want to venture a guess at what those odds are?
are these odds for any glove size that we're dealing with?
So it's for a mixed rules boxing fight.
I'd say 4-1 for Fury.
I'd say
they're still throwing hands. Yeah, they're still throwing hands at the end of the day. What do you got?
I would say Fury like minus 900 or something.
So Fury's minus 1,500.
Yeah.
And Ngannou plus 750. So not really much value. We'll have to ask BP if he sees any value there in Ngannou. But the most interesting thing from the post-fight talk between the two of them was that they're sitting there talking about doing a mixed rules fight, and then Fury's like, I mean, you're a good-looking guy. Like, you got a big dick on you or what? And then Ngannou was like, what are you talking about? Like, and Fury's like trying to grab at him, like neg him a little bit. So he's already starting with the head games there.
Yeah.
He's trying to make Ngannou feel comfortable.
Wow.
Which, look, hey, I am lying on the straight side of the arrow here, but like everyone has seen the dick imprint that Ngannou has. So like, you know, when you fight Francis Ngannou, you're fighting Francis and Francis Jr. You're not just fighting Francis.
Thank you for that.
That's why nobody goes for a takedown on Francis.
Oh my god!
Go in.
Yeah, that's fair. And I'm just so glad that we had you to give us that.
Yeah, because I can say that. Because I can.
You can.
My eyes are up here, John. Number 3, the anti-Anik fade parlay. So I was going in the DraftKings Sportsbook and I was looking at it. For the Celtics to win the East, the Blue Jays to beat the Red Sox in their next series, because as we know, the Red Sox are playing like garbage, and Rob Font to win plus 808 on DK Sportsbook. I kind of like that. You know, I'm not the capper here, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, that's pretty juicy. All right. Good stuff from Cody Merrow on the way out. I like Francis Ngannou with that shaved head, by the way, of course. All right. If you want any of Ken-Flo's jiu-jitsu stuff, KennyFlorianMartialArts.com. Fundamentally, that's as good as you will find on the internet. AnikFlorianPodcast.com for merchandise. We also have some limited edition Phoenix, Arizona designs of the One More Sleep merch. You can find that at millions.co. Thank you all for the support. Don't forget, remember the show with Bilal Muhammad and Jason Anik on this very channel coming up Thursday. If you missed last week's show, sort of a celebration for those guys after Bilal's win over Vicente Luque, you can check that out as well. Thank you to our guests, Seán Sheehan, bringing it off the top of the show, Ray Longo, Brian Petrie, our producer is Cody Merrow, for our intern Will Berger as well. Thank you all for watching, for listening. We will be back with you Sunday, May 1st, full preview of UFC 274 coming up May 7th in Phoenix, Arizona. With that, for Ken-Flo, I'm John Anik. Thank you all so much for supporting the program. We'll talk to you in about 6 days. Until then, yo fucking later.